Okay, so we've got Procreate 4.2, the latest update with new features, and I'm going to be testing them out on the new iPad Pro, the 3rd generation, along with the Apple Pencil 2, because the new version of Procreate 4.2 has a couple of features that are especially designed for the 2nd generation Apple Pencil. If you haven't watched my full guide to the app, then please look through my playlist. In fact, there's going to be a link down in the description. In that, I give a full rundown of version 4 of Procreate, minus some of the updates obviously you're going to see in this latest version 4.2. I produce all my artwork on it these days, and I really love the flexibility and the power that's contained in such a small, portable and convenient format of the iPad. So in terms of what's new, one of the features that I've always wished they would introduce is the ability to crop and change your overall canvas once you've started it. So obviously when you've created a canvas here, you have certain dimensions, proportions. You may have an idea at the beginning of a piece of work exactly what proportions it needs to be, but then as you actually get to the creative part of it, you may decide that you want more of a stretched out, elongated canvas, or you want to increase the resolution because a small sketch that was at a low resolution suddenly becomes something that you want to invest into a full painting. Or you just wish to change perspective, move the whole image into a different angle. Now all of those things are now possible. So if you go into the wrench or the spanner settings and you go into canvas, you have a crop and resize option here. So you can literally change the dimensions. There is a link option here, so anything you change here is going to change that. That's if you just want to shrink or expand. Or you can literally crop and delete top sections so they're no longer part of your frame. Very handily, it shows you the exact millimeter proportions and it tells you how many layers you'll have if you then edit it to be that size. Obviously you can oversize it so you can make it bigger, and I think there's a limit to what you can do with that. It stopped allowing me to adjust it beyond a certain point, and it stopped around the 10 layer area. And we have the option to resample as well, so whenever you've done this it will resample it. And I suppose if you've reduced the size of your canvas to be much smaller or much bigger, it's going to have to do something with the resampling to make it fit and make it work in that resolution, those proportions. You can also rotate your image. You can have an entirely different perspective on it. So I've cropped the canvas and now you can see I've done that. So don't worry, I've got another copy saved, and you can also go back. Like I say, if you want to put a specific dimension here, you can actually click and you can actually type as well. Okay, so that covers the crop and resize. There have also been some changes to the Liquify tool. So if you go into the adjustments and you come down to Liquify, you'll notice there's a couple of extra things you can affect here, the distortion and momentum. We also have a couple of new effects here in the Liquify. For example, we have crystals and we have edge. So I'll just show you on the push, for example. If we turn the distortion and the momentum down, so if I just show you on the push tool, you can see how you can push different areas around and distort them. Just undo that. But if we move the distortion up as well, you might notice that it's also kind of creating a ripple. I'll just show you the first version again. So without the distortion, it's just pushing it round. It is obviously distorting as a whole, but it's not creating any extra texture or ripples. And if we go on the distortion, I'll show you on another bit here, it's adding more of a kind of a ripple. So I guess if you're doing anything that involves water, then that's going to be a really interesting feature. I'll show you that again. If you move it slow, the distortion doesn't do a great deal. It's just like the normal push, but as soon as you move it quickly, you can see, if I go through lots of areas and then run back, you can really start to distort it. It's really good for creating sort of liquid or water effects. If I go back and also put up the momentum, you'll see that it races on and it keeps on moving things, keeps on pushing things. And if I turn the size of the brush down, perhaps you can see that a little more accurately. You can see it shot all the way along there. So I can do it from the corner and you'll notice that it carries on going. It has momentum, literally. I'm not entirely sure what I would use this for personally, but maybe you can imagine use cases for this. It certainly creates an interesting series of textures, and you might find a section within one of your old paintings, for example. You could distort it, manipulate it, or even photographs, and then it may start you off on a new direction with your piece of work. I'm going to turn those down just to show you the other brush or the other Liquify tools. You can see this is a crystals. creates a rather nice effect. So if I show you the crystals without the distortion, you can see it creates rather angular textures, really quite nice. Again, I'm struggling to think off the top of my head a reason why I'd want to use that, but having the tool available is definitely something that you might start to think about your images in a different way, knowing that you can actually do it. Now if we turn the momentum up, I'll just undo a couple of those. Less dramatic than with the push tool, but it has a little bit more movement anyway. Okay, in terms of the edge Liquify tool, it's a little bit different than the pinch one. If you use the pinch one and you plonk it down, and it pulls from every direction. If you use the edge one, you hold it down, it only pulls it so far. It seems to be, if you run it along the edge of something, it pulls it and it relies on the movement. It's not enough to simply hold it down. It doesn't seem to do very much. Whereas if you run along the edge of something, you can see it's really pinched in. There's two separate areas. I'll show you again. So if I show you with the pinch button, you press and hold that down, it just pulls everything from every area. Whereas if you use the edge and hold it down, it doesn't really do anything. It's only when I start to move it along a particular area, and you can see it's almost like it's stitching two different areas together, which is quite an interesting idea. I'm going to open a new canvas. Now if you're somebody who likes to use Procreate and you haven't got an Apple Pencil and you're relying on a stylus that isn't an Apple Pencil, doesn't have pencil pressure, then the new settings with tapering on brush strokes could be really useful for you. So for example, now we have on script, you'll notice that it's tapered and you can affect the tapering at the beginning and at the end of the stroke. Now previously, if you were just using your finger, it wouldn't register a taper effect. It was more to do with pressure and other things. Okay, so let's get to perhaps one of the most important changes that I feel they've also made, if not the most important in some people's eyes, is changes and additions to the quick line tool. I'll do it on an airbrush. So we've had the tool for a while that if you produce a line and you hold it down, it snaps to a straight line. We've had that for quite a while, but now we've got the addition of other shapes. So if you make a circle, press and hold it, it smooths out in the first instance to a more perfect looking shape. You can rotate it. You can shrink it. If you press your finger down, it turns it to a perfect circle. So we'll try it again with another shape. We could do a square. And you can see I can rotate it, I can shrink it, increase it. And if I press my finger down, it turns it to a perfect square. You can also, if you complete it, click on Edit Shape, and it gives you areas that you can pull and stretch from. So it gives you 4 different blue dots around it, and you can manipulate that oval, that ellipse. So if you're doing a technical drawing or a shape that requires a perfect ellipse shape or a circle shape, then you can do it that way. It seems to be that if you produce something that's very close to a circle to begin with, and then go on the edit shape, it tends to give you a circle option that way as well. So there's 2 different ways that you can achieve a circle there. If you produce something more random and click and hold it, it turns a lot of those lines into straight lines. You can also edit it and manipulate that to your heart's content as well. As soon as you click off it though, you cannot manipulate it any further. Another great new feature that they've added is clipping mask. So if you were to create a particular shape, I'm just creating something random and abstract here, and then you create another layer, put it above it, tap on the layer, click on clipping mask, change your color so you can see, and you can use various different layers on this. You can multiply the layers up on top and you'll see that it will only now color, and it's clipped literally to the area of the layers below it. So it's very much attached to the layer beneath it. So it's clipped. If you create another one, tap on it, clipping mask, use another color, again, clip to it. So I could remove the orange layer, put it back in, remove the green layer, the 2 separate layers. And there's lots of things that you can do building up to that. So if you're working in graphics or you need a really clean look to a shape and you want to experiment with some more gestural things but want to have it very much contained within a certain shape, that's going to be incredibly useful. Another addition within the selection tool is this new feature of feathering the edge of your selection. So if I just show you here in another layer, I'm just going to fill in that layer and then I'm going to select part of it. Then I can go to the feather option and I can change the amount, and then if I go onto something like the eraser, you can see there it's really softened the edge. And if I do the same again, this time with a bigger amount of feathering. Go onto the eraser and you can see that it really has created a really soft, gradual changing of tone there. So it's really feathered the edge, really made it a soft transition rather than a hard edge. Now I'm using the new iPad, the 3rd generation iPad Pro and the 2nd generation Apple Pencil. And within Procreate, if you go to the preferences, the gesture controls, within various different things here, there's ways of enabling the double tap function on the Apple Pencil. By default, if you're doing some drawing and you double tap it in the lower region, it defaults to eraser. And obviously you can change your general eraser settings to be whatever suits your purpose for a piece of work. But by default, you can draw normally, double tap, it erases, double tap again, it goes back to drawing. And this works wherever you tap. It doesn't have to be on the flat edge, it could be anywhere in that area, and you can just use the flat edge to enable you to get a decent grip on the actual Apple Pencil. Within the preferences, you could use it as an eyedropper tool, quick shape tool, to get to the quick menu, tap in and out of full screen, so I'll show you that for example. Now if I double tap, it gets rid of all of the tools and the icons, double tap again and it brings it back. So now obviously the eraser tool has been replaced by the screen, full screen, and with the toolbars. Okay, there's going to be lots of other little minor tweaks and adjustments that's going to be here, but it's going to take a little further explanation before I can truly discover some of those. But in terms of the main updates, I think that pretty much covers most of the new updates with 4.2 in Procreate. Do check out my main app guide in the link below. If you want to support me on Patreon, there is also a link for that down in the description as well. Please check out my other tutorials, my other videos, and I shall catch you back here again. See you later.